Hello, welcome back, everyone. I am so glad that you have decided to spend part of your Saturday today with me and my guest, Vivian Blade, because we are having a really important conversation today about what happens when you get laid off or you get passed over for that important promotion or anything that sort of causes you to have that sense of regret, of unfulfillment, of whatever word you want to put to it. So, Vivian, thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming to share your story and tell everybody who you are.
Thank you for having me, Rita. I'm so excited to be on your show. I'm a fan of yours and look forward to our conversation today. I am a workplace futurist, and that means I am really helping people look forward. Everything is changing around us, our work, how work gets done, the workplace, the workforce. So, how do we navigate and make sure that we continue to be relevant in this future of work, never normal environment we're in? So, do a lot to support professionals in their journey of being the best that they can be in navigating this space, as well as organizations to make sure that they have the kind of workplace that is attractive, that's the kind of culture where people love to work and they feel valued, especially in the chaos of change. So that's a short version of who I am and my passion.
Well, and if you've been following me, you understand why, like Vivi and I are soul sisters. We met actually speaking at a conference, and we immediately, once we realized we were fellow Louvillians, are like, we got to get together. And I just adore this woman and her purpose and what she brings to the world. I dropped her link for her website. You can go learn more about her and the things that she does. I encourage you to do that. So that is in the comments. If you are with us live, please jump in the comments and say hello. Give us some love. Let us know that you are here. Welcome, Vivian, to the show. And remember, you're here to participate. So ask your questions, make your comments. We love to hear from you throughout the show. Again, we're going to talk about one of the most difficult things that people experience in their adult life, and that is getting laid off from a job. And Vivian, you came to share your story about when you navigated that experience. Tell everybody about it.
Yeah, it was 2008, 2009 during the downturn, and I worked for GE at the time. So I was on my career path, on moving up the corporate ladder, high potential. Had a lot of opportunity for leadership development and career development, a lot of mentoring. So I was in my zone. I was doing the things that I had always hoped to be and to do in my career and working for one of the most coveted companies, and successful companies in the world and having a great
Can I pause your
career.
story right there? Because I think there's
Yeah.
something really important in the setup. I want to make sure everybody caught that. A lot of times when people face that conversation of having to tell people that they got laid off from their job, the feeling that they have is they weren't good enough or that they were a problem in some way. And I just want people to zero in on what you're saying. Like you, not only were you doing well in your job, they were investing in you in your job.
Hmm.
They had
Yeah.
tapped you on the shoulder. They were investing in you. So that number one of those stories about worthiness, be careful about that and listen to what Vivian is saying here, because sometimes life is not fair. And I'm going to let her continue on, but I just had to pause to say that because I know this is one of the big hurdles we struggle with in this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. We identify ourselves so much by our work and our worth through our work. So I love that point that you made. But so during the 2008, 2009 downturn, when many companies were laying off, the economy took a big dip, to say it mildly. GE had before that was looking at either sunsetting the appliances business from their portfolio, spinning it off, or either selling it off. So I'd had some opportunity to sort of think about what I might do next. But being caught up in that time and being laid off, I remember the day receiving the phone call and sitting there. I was in the second round of layoffs. I had a team. There were people on my team who were affected in that first round. So I was on the having to tell people end, and then on the receiving end of that as well. It was a very difficult time. I had really, just a lot of emotion around how do I go home and tell my husband, again, because it was the second round of layoffs. It wasn't necessarily new, but it still hit hard and it was very personal to me. And our children were in school. We were they were, I think, starting high school at the time. Wasn't a great time for me not to have a job and looking forward to college and everything. So you go through all of those questions about, what are we going to do next? How do I go home and say that I've lost my job? And I remember the phone call to my husband shortly after that with such a understanding and calming spirit who helped me to manage my emotions and to assure me that we were going to get through that. But
I'm going to pause you
yeah.
again because, again,
Hmm.
like the nuggets are falling already. Precious Jules in the house. Thanks for joining us, Precious. Whoever on LinkedIn, we can't see your name. You probably have some set up that does not. Thank you for saying that you're here. Something you just said that, again, is so important, Vivian, and that is it is emotional. Trying to talk yourself out of the feelings is not what we're here to talk about. We're not trying to convince ourselves not to have those feelings because those feelings are genuine and we want to honor those feelings. So where this isn't about saying you got to put a smiley face on and pretend like something bad is not happening. So if you're already questioning where we're going, that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about acknowledging those feelings, acknowledging the hard, and still finding your path forward beyond that.
Hmm. Absolutely. You have to deal with them. As we know, the grief cycle says we don't move forward. We can't move forward unless we've had the opportunity and take that opportunity to grieve and surround ourselves with people. Don't do it in isolation, which is another just thing I'm grateful for my husband, for my family, as we were going through that time. My siblings really helped me to navigate that space. So, mhm.
Yeah, I mean, Gail, right here, death experience. It is true. Like you said this, you have so much of your identity tied
Mhm.
up in your profession, in your role, in your title, in it's I know this just when I decided to leave the workforce and spend some time at home with my kids. I had to grieve that process even then, and it was my choice, and I was still in grief. So the grief thing is natural. It's real, and of trying to avoid it actually does more harm than trying
Mhm.
to embrace the reality of that. So
Right.
tell us a little bit more. You said that your husband was really beneficial. A lot of us may not be the one receiving the pink slip, but we have to support people around us, sisters, brothers, mothers, uncles, aunts, spouses, children who are impacted by this. What was it that you thought made your husband's support so effective for you?
Realizing that it is emotional, it's emotional time and it's a very stressful time, and to try to reduce the stress and try to come up with solutions on how we move forward. He is very much a solution oriented. Okay, let's keep moving forward, fix this kind of person, and not staying in the woe is me kind of place. But okay, kind of what's next, which I so appreciate that mindset for him. But I want to go back to the emotion of this for a minute too, and I gratefully was able to realize, and probably especially because by the time my layoff happened, it was in that sort of second round, but it wasn't personal. This was business. There are so many hard decisions that have to be made. And they're business decisions. And sometimes the human side of that and the people behind the pink slip are not what's necessarily recognized, but it's not necessarily personal. And it's sort of the order of doing business, in our business environment. Unfortunately, doesn't make it right. But that can help us to not take it so personal, for us to not get ourselves wrapped up in what did I do wrong? Why am I not good enough? And questioning ourselves so much. The other thing I want to add to that, I was so grateful to before that, and I think another thing that helped me through that time was my faith. And I had been to a marketing conference in Texas. Some friends of ours lived in the Austin area, invited me while I was there on business to go to a revival with them. Marvin Sapp was and he's a gospel artist. He was the evangelist that was speaking during that time, and he spoke on Second Chronicles chapter 20, which also reinforced in that story. I'm going to encourage you to go back and read that, but about the story that there is more on the other side that we can't see, even
Mm.
when it seems like we're at the end of our rope, and that we are not in it by ourselves. God has got this. He's if you're a person of faith, which I am, undergirding us and helping to carry us through those times. So I would say that's another just message that really helped me to move through and not quite take it so personal.
So Samaya, I don't know if I'm saying your name right. I apologize if I'm butchering it, but I want to look at what she's adding in here. And by the way, Liz Wool, thanks for the shout out. Lori, Gail, thank you for joining us and for joining the comments. But I think she's really encapsulating the story that so many of us have in our head. I'm rejected. Why me? Why wasn't I given any opportunity to prepare for this? Why is this just being dumped on me so suddenly? So what were some of those thoughts, those stories, Vivian, that do you recall in the moment of between receiving the news and starting to make the plan with your husband, and maybe even beyond that? What were some of those really self-critical stories that were sounding off in your mind? Because our narrator never stops.
Absolutely. I had all the things. Oh, all the things that she mentioned. Why me? How in the world could I be getting laid off? I have given more than 40 hours a week, missed the things that my kids were involved in. I've done all the things, walked the line, done a great job in my role, moving up and being promoted. And so, therefore having, those opportunities and that recognition of adding value to the business, had the opportunity to step into a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt role, running customer experience for our division. So I was given some significant responsibility. So how in the world could I be being laid off? And so you deal with all of those questions of, isn't there a reciprocal sort of responsibility here? And so, yeah, I went through all of those things. And then what am I going to do next? What in the
Mm.
world? And we were in an environment at that point, which I think we're finding ourselves much in right now with so many organizations laying off, that you've got a lot of people in the marketplace. You don't have a lot of jobs, and that you can apply for. We weren't moving because my husband's company, this was a good market for them, and of course that was a stable job for him. We had kids in high school, so we didn't want to, disrupt them either. So I didn't have a whole lot of options in terms of what am I going to do next, and how am I going to make sure that I can contribute to the financial viability of my family, and how do I get back to doing something that is important for me, and work that fulfills me in my life and feels like I'm making a meaningful contribution. So I went through all the things, all those
I know
emotions.
that the one experience that I had where I was sitting in the HR seat. So at this time, I was a senior director of HR. I was responsible for a large portion of the business at Gap Inc. It is advising directly to executive leaders. The company had its very first year where it made zero profit, and layoffs were the decision, cutting the workforce. They were closing stores, all kinds of things. and went through that process of being the HR person in the room to deliver every one of these conversations to every person that was impacted in my segment of the business. And and of course we the Gap did some nice things. They immediately purchased services. They outsourced getting support to employees to help them navigate through the kinds of things that you want to see good, thoughtful companies do. But I do know from talking to those employees that this stigma they feel that they have, how do they go out in the marketplace and say, I got laid off and not look like a failure?
Hmm.
How do they make it not personal? Did you find
Yeah.
yourself struggling with those thoughts?
Yeah, I know, absolutely. Because there is a stigma, oh, what did you do? Right? Or, oh, there must be some reason why you were chosen. And I think this goes back to the comment I see from Gail here, which I also want to acknowledge about the personal side of being laid off and how personal it is. Gail, I appreciate you bringing that up because it is, and delivering those messages, being on either side of that, from that standpoint, it is very personal. And my point was that sometimes with the scale of decisions that have to be made, it's not necessarily a personal decisions in many cases, but it is a very human impacting experience to both deliver and to both go through. So when you're going back then out into the world, I think those are the things that you have to continue to remember and do for yourself. First of all, is what is my value? Who am I at my core? And what did I bring? So you look back a little bit about the contributions that you have made along the course of your career. The value, we used to talk about runway oftentimes when we think about a person's future potential. What runway do they have? So you have to think about, what contributions can I continue to bring? What are the skill sets? What is it in my personal character also that contributes to an organization? And where can I fit in? And sometimes figuring out how your skills may be transferable or not can be challenging because you don't know. Maybe this is the work that you've been doing. And I know we see that in a lot of cases with people who are working in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space where there's so much change happening there. And so, how do the skill sets and the work that I've done and have been so passionate about my entire career, how do I shift that to something different and to something new without losing a lot of myself? Those are
Well,
questions we
and
have to grapple with.
I agree with you 100%, right? So don't let this decision steal your internal self knowledge about who you are in your capacity and your capability. That's the message I hear that Vivian's. Don't let this steal that light from you. But I'm guessing, Vivian, that um, there was a process here. I'm wondering, like, were you able to just summon that confidence and find that ownership and walk into the first interview, the first time you put yourself out there, or was it a journey? And what was that journey like?
Yeah, it was definitely a journey. And I think part of that goes back to one, sort of that faith journey and some of the messaging that I didn't realize would be for me. I came back from that business trip and that revival and was sharing some of that message with other people and then realized that experience was for me. So that helped me a lot. And then that the rest of that journey for me was we had outplacement service, so going and having opportunities to explore my skill sets and working with somebody, having conversations with that resource, but also in my personal circle. So I also have siblings who are extremely supportive and we're there for each other. So being able to have conversations with other people was also very helpful for me. the other thing, I had to listen to some of my internal narrative in terms of building self confidence and really thinking about what my path forward could be. And here's the experience I'm talking about there. As I went to the outplacement service, you do these little questionnaires and surveys that help you to figure out what you might be good at going forward. Entrepreneurship was one that was not on the high list of things that would might be good for me for my next step. But I had, and because I had also sort of some of that time when GE was going to maybe spin off or sell the appliances business, I had thought about what I might do. I thought about a consulting practice, and I said, I'm gonna go two paths. So there's not necessarily one answer forward, and you can explore two paths. So I said, well, let me see what's out there and looking for a job. And then also with the experiences and the skill sets that I have, let me explore entrepreneurship and what I might do, having a consulting business where I can help organizations with process improvement, with customer experience enhancements based on the work I had been doing. And so I move forward. The other thing that was interesting, a lot of people said, in order to go through the grieving process, take some time off. Give it a few weeks. Which is good, but for me, I couldn't do that. I needed to say, okay, I need to sort of see what's next. So taking some of that time to really be thoughtful is important. My thoughtful time and restful time was a little bit more active, but so as we got into the first part of January, I started thinking about, okay, what is the name of the company I want to file? And I went ahead and filed for opening, a business and started that process. But I was still going down two paths. So I allowed myself to have some options and not be sort of only committed or felt like there was one answer. So some
I
open
love that.
mindedness.
Yeah, don't box yourself in and explore. And you can try multiple things. You don't have to pick a single path and go all in there. You can choose to explore some different things. My friend Gary from England is with us. Thank you, Gary, for joining us. And I love this statement: knowing our core values is essential. Those things that keep us rooted, the deep things that make us unique contributors that we can continue to be.
Absolutely.
Right. So often, and women are especially bad about this, but I think people of color in general suffer this as well. We talk ourselves out of opportunities because we say we're not ready. The story we tell ourselves is, I don't have the receipts for that. I don't have the direct experience. I've got to do something else to prove my readiness before I can step in. But I'm telling you, this is something that we can steal from men. Men have a different level of uh, of acceptance of the idea that their skills are transferable. That they, if they were smart enough to figure something out over here and they have these basic elements, they'll figure it out as they go. And we are all capable of doing that to a large extent. And so I think this idea that you are sharing and that Gary is adding to here is that it is so easy to allow your internal narrator to give you the false flag that you've got to get another degree, that you've got to do some other thing before you can choose one of these other paths. Oh, well, Vivian, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to go to entrepreneur school. That's offered over here. You got to do that 6-month course, that year-long course, whatever it is. And then when you finished all that, then you can think about filing for a name of your company and doing something. Right? I mean, that it's so easy
Mm-hmm.
to get caught in that trap of false narrative.
Yeah.
And so I want people to take away from what you're saying that even though it didn't show as your strength, it didn't stop you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you figured all these things out and you had your Six Sigma belt and everything, you could figure this out too.
Yeah.
If you
And
wanted it, well, if you wanted it enough,
yeah.
you could figure it out.
And I still had those questions in my mind, of uncertainty. So, those things are still going on, but building that confidence, and to your point, we suffer from imposter syndrome so much. I talk about this in my book Influence, about when I talk about authenticity as one of the core elements of growing our influence and being influential. That authentic influence also, we have to love ourselves first. So going back to the values that Gary talked about, love ourselves first and know that we have value and we have something to give and to bring, and that we don't have to have had all the experiences. And that's where we can be thoughtful about, and maybe have people who are, we're so close to ourselves, sometimes there are things we can't see about ourselves. So as we reach out to people and have conversations about, well, what is it that you see in me? What's the value? How have I been helpful? Help me look at some of the things that I've done before, and where might there be transferable skills? Talking to people who are in other industries or in other roles to see what their journey has been and what their organizations are like, or their careers are like. What might I have that can play a role in, another path forward? So loving ourselves, realizing our value, realizing that we are enough, and we have, and we can learn. We are on this path in our lives of always growing and learning. We can learn along the way also. And the other thing that's important about what you said, Rita, is that as leaders, sometimes leaders, when we get into jobs, well, we feel like, okay, I have to know everything. And the smartest leaders know that they can build a team of experts around them that complement their skill set.
Amen. Say that
Those
again.
are the
Say that
best.
again,
Yes.
Vivian, one more time.
We bring in people around us that complement our skill sets. We don't have to know everything. We don't want to be the person who knows it. That's the other side of the spectrum, the superiority complex, which is the other thing I talk about in authenticity. But so, you don't have to have check every box, but what's around you? How can I continue to learn and grow my skill set? What do I have to contribute today? And who's around me, or how can I surround myself with experts in some of these other areas to complement what I have to bring to the table?
Well, the other theme that I'm hearing that I just want to call out directly here is you're talking about you use resources. You had the outsourcing resource, you asked for help, you talk to other people. And even if your company isn't giving you those resources to help you navigate this process, you do not have to be a victim of their inability to do the right thing. You can still go rally your troops around you. Use your connections, use the people around you. Go back to our very first episode with Karen Laus, and she gave this little exercise that you can do where you ask for people to give you five characteristics about who you are, how they experience you. Allow people to help you see things that, just like Vivian said, you cannot see in yourself because you are too close and your inner critic is too hard on you. Your inner critic is an unreliable narrator oftentimes when it comes to you and who you are and what you can do. But if you trust, if you go to your trusted advisors and people around you, people that lift and support you, that have been along your journey with you, they can see and share things with you that you're not able to see for yourself.
Absolutely. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself grace. And and know that people have, if people are good intentioned, in your network, people who care about you, they're going to have empathy and compassion for you when you say, I lost my job. Here's the situation, and here's how you can help me. People want to help. They want to be part of supporting you in being able to move forward.
So one of the tropes that our inner critic tells us that we talked about early on is people are going to reject you because you got laid off. Like that's just going to disqualify you automatically, or you're gonna have to defend that. So I want the redemptive side of the story. I want to make sure we don't run out of time before you tell people the end of this story about how you stepped into that space and chose your path forward and what you were able to create and to what extent that that internal critic's voice was proven true or not true in your experience.
Hmm. Yeah. So as I move forward, and again, at the time, there weren't a lot of jobs available, and we weren't moving, so I didn't have a whole lot of options. So I moved more toward the path of entrepreneurship and creating my own consulting and speaking practice. Pivotal were a couple of things. People who were there to help me. I had Jean Bliss was someone who I knew through the customer experience space, and she said, "Come with me to some client work. You'll be a partner with me in some of this work. I'll get our clients, to support your travel expenses, so you can see what it's like." She helped me on that journey and getting started and was so supportive. And we worked together. We did things together for many, many years. And then there were other people another person who introduced me to the National Speakers Association, put me in contact with people within NSA who were welcoming and said, "Yeah, come here. We are a community of people who support each other. We're learning and growing together so that we can bring our expertise to the world." So again, that partnership, something that I talk about in my Resilience Ready book, that the partnership that we need, especially when we're going through things, that we're not isolating ourselves, and where people also can reach out proactively to help us along the way. So it was people who helped me to find the confidence that, yes, I can do this and I have something of value to contribute, and to be able to put that together into something that would add value in a way that were frameworks and training. And so that's where today I continue to do leadership development workshops. I'm a keynote speaker. As you mentioned,
You are
I think.
you've achieved the highest level of mastery that is in speaking, right? I mean, you're a certified professional speaker. I mean, that is a huge deal.
Thank you. That, yeah, certified speaking professional. So we call it CSP, and it is among those highest earned designations. There are a couple of others in the NSA, National Speakers Association community, that are at successive levels. I want to make sure that I mention and honor that.
Oh,
But yeah, no, but grateful to have earned that designation. Executive coaching is something else that I do. Also, my consulting work continues, and going in and working with organizations to help them to bring that culture to, as I mentioned earlier, this space of a place where people love to work and they feel valued. Operational excellence is another thing that I work on, so merging divisions together, which is something that I'm working on now with a client. But the importance of that work, the opportunity, and the thing that I love about the space that I'm in, the opportunity that I have to work with different organizations, different professionals, people, to just that diversity of the work that I have the opportunity to contribute to. I'm so grateful for that, and a different kind of experience than if I had stayed in the same place or been on the same path. Nothing wrong with that at all. But that's just one of the things I appreciate about the path I've been able to be on, is how I have grown, and the difference and breadth of experiences that I've been able to have because of what happened before, And because I was able to say yes and to build on the value that I've been able to bring and how I've grown and continue to develop and learn and not been stagnant along the way. I'm grateful for that.
I want to call out, and I hope I think my internet is, I think, acting up again. So I hope everybody's hearing this. I want to call out. There's two elements here. One element is that you are going to, if you're impacted by a layoff, you've got to ask for the help. But for all of the rest of us out there, we have the opportunity to be those partners like Vivian had. We have the opportunity to reach back and help somebody out. We have the opportunity to make connections, to make introductions, to be part of the safety net, the support system for people who are navigating this unplanned career shift in their lives. And so I invite you all to remind yourselves of that and to look.
Yeah, I want to follow up on what Rita was talking about there with a couple of elements. And, in my resilience work, to be resilient is not necessarily about bouncing back, but resilience is about how we navigate change, how well we adapt. So, resilient adaptability is something that I talk about a lot. And, in those things that Rita was talking about, mindset becomes important. So, our perspective around things and looking at our opportunities forward. So, I've done some new work around how we sort of reframe our mindset. I want to note the comment here that someone has made about, it looks like God is redirecting me in my life. And I certainly believe that the purpose I am fulfilling and doing the purposeful work that I was meant to do in my life at this point in time. And that partnership, is another thing. Our perseverance when it comes to resilience is about how we set the stage for ourselves to be able to navigate all these shifts. So our well-being becomes part of that. And then praise is the other resilience ready principle that I wanted to mention in navigating this journey, which helps us to give ourselves grace and recognize the accomplishments, the milestones along the way, as well as the accomplishments that we do make. So it's part of the journey. So
I
to
love it. I
emphasize
love
some of
it.
the things you talked about. Mhm.
Yes, thank you. And we've reached the capacity of my internet because now I've been upstreaming for so long, it's like falling apart on me. So I guess it's telling us it's time to close the show, which is this is how you reach out to Vivian, vivianblade.com. You heard she's written multiple books. She is an excellent, just one of the best you could ever have keynote speakers. You've heard her talk a lot. You can see how the work that Vivian does is informed by her journey and how she is sharing that back with others to help them along the way. So I hope you will check out what she has going. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we have two more episodes that are coming up. But Vivian, this is such an important conversation. That's why we did it on a weekend. We wanted to maximize the people that we could reach. If you know somebody that needs this conversation, it lives on my LinkedIn. It lives on my YouTube, Addict Night Extraordinary on YouTube. Share this with others and let's help others navigate these life changes more successfully. Thank you, Lori, Gail, everyone for being here. We loved having you with us, and we'll see you again next week. Bye, everyone.